Peter Griffin has to be one of the most destructive men alive. And saying man even feels a bit generous, because this is a sentient wrecking ball who has somehow managed to keep a house, a wife, 3 kids, and a circle of friends despite having the IQ of a fucking bowl of porridge.
Listen, I just found out I'm retarded.
The thing about Peter is that he doesn't even pick his victims. He often just stumbles into them. There's always something to lose when Peter's involved. And it could even be a bloody eye.
Hey, Joe, open your eye.
Today, we're going to look at 8 of the poor bastards who had the misfortune of being in Peter's orbit. So good luck to the bloody hell that is Quahog. You're going to need it to handle this half-cut imbecile. Here we go, starting with our first victim, Mort Goldman. In the episode Family Gay, where, yes, Peter indeed turns gay, this episode starts with Lois giving Peter money to go to the shop. That's it. Just go to the shop, get some beans, and come back. But 6 hours later, Peter comes back with a horse that is mostly brain dead. Just like us at Not Fair Studios for overanalyzing these cartoons for you lot. Peter still didn't buy the beans.
Lois, I got something better. You know how you always wanted a real diamond engagement ring?
Oh my God!
That's right, I bought a horse.
So Peter names the horse Till Death. And it just spends its time in the house, head empty, standing around, smashing its head on walls, peeing on carpets, and being an obstruction most of the time. Peter, in his infinite wisdom, decides that the best thing to do with 500 kilos of retardation is to sign it up with the Quahog Derby to promote himself as a horse breeder and sell horse semen. We wish we were making literally any of this up.
Why are there so many bottles of milk in the refrigerator?
Oh, thanks for reminding me. Everyone, some of the milk in the fridge is not milk, it's horse sperm.
And Stewie is still chowing on his cereal after hearing that. If there were any doubts about his preferences, he's still not beating the allegations now. Anyway, the race goes as well as you'd expect. The horse abandons the race, charges into the crowd, and dies of a fatal heart attack. By the time it's done, the Griffins are staring down $100,000 worth of damage. But given that I'm British, I have zero idea of what that currency means anyway. It's like Monopoly money to me. It's basically worthless. Now, Peter has a horse that is very large and very dead. And rather than handle this with like a burial or something that a normal person would do, Peter presents his next best idea in the episode. What did Mort even do to deserve this? He was just standing behind the counter of his pharmacy like a regular Monday. Then, Peter just goes, double my debt and give it to the next person. Now imagine how much it's going to cost to repair all the property damage that Peter just caused to his store. Fortunately, no one got hurt in that whole shtick. But this next segment is where things get physical between people, starting with a 13-year-old kid. Not that kind of physical. Get your head out of the gutter, you sickos. Anyway, in The Tanaquatic with Steve Zissou, Chris comes home from getting beaten up by a neighborhood bully named Kyle. Now, Kyle is the new paperboy on the street. He pushes Chris over in front of his friends, and Chris comes home in tears.
It was wrong of you to steal my customer away from me, and I want him back.
Oh, yeah?
Look, Griffin got his ass kicked.
Peter decides he's going to have a word, which is fair enough. You know, a normal parenting instinct. Except he doesn't talk to his parents. He goes straight to Kyle. And Kyle, being a 13-year-old who doesn't know when to stop, starts taking the piss out of Peter. He mimics him, calls him names, including a poop nose, specifically, which is genuinely one of the more pathetic insults I've ever heard from a child, but is also ultimately quite funny, against an adult man. But Peter, being the calm and rational man he is, decides to handle this professionally. I understand on some level that this was messed up, so he dives out the window and rushes all the way back home. Eventually, Lois discovers what he did from the neighbours, and Peter then rushes to hide in a tree. So, Lois goes back to drag his ass down like an angry cat.
You get down from that tree this instant.
No, you're gonna yell at me.
You're damn right I'm gonna yell at you. You beat up a 13-year-old boy.
Sometimes I wonder what Lois really did to get this kind of husband. What kind of karma really got to her, and how she has the mental strength to put up with this bloody arsehole of a husband. But even as Peter's voice of reason most of the time, even she's had her moments where the fat man's actions have affected her. In Petarded, Peter takes an IQ test and is officially qualified as mentally disabled once the results come back.
Peter, according to this, you're not a genius. In fact, you're mentally retarded.
Jeez! I wonder what took so long to get that conclusion. So, naturally, Peter is kind of bummed out about this as he's driving back from dinner with Lois and runs over Tom Tucker, the news anchor. Of course, Tom's aware of Peter's disability and he's willing to let it slide.
Griffin, the retarded fellow.
Yeah?
Oh, well, then don't worry about it.
Sure, it's fine until you have a look at the big fat medical bill waiting for you. Even though Peter is retarded, he finally overworks that single brain cell of his and realizes that he can get away with anything. And in classic Peter Griffin fashion, he decides to milk it for everything it's worth. He gets away with anything from starting Bible fights to barging into women's bathrooms. But worst of all is when Peter goes to a fast food restaurant and he spots a deep fat fryer behind the counter. Because Peter Griffin has the impulse control of a toddler who's been fed pure sugar, he hops over to steal it. And in the chaos of doing that, he dumps all of the boiling hot industrial fire grease directly onto Lois.
The fryer later. Oh, I am so taking this. Uh-oh.
Not only does she end up hospitalized with terrible burns, Child Protective Services shows up because Peter is alone and legally unfit to parent. Cleveland offers to take care of his kids while Peter works out what's going to happen next. In the end, he decides the best course of action is to make Cleveland appear as a bad parent by inviting prostitutes over to his house. But this eventually leads to a court case with the CPS agents seeing right through Peter's scheme. And Peter does an excellent job of not defending himself, presenting the ghost that never lies.
Ghost that never lies. Did you witness the events that took place on that fateful day? You did? Well, how interesting. And do you see the culprit or culprits in this courtroom today? You do? Yeah. Well, would you kindly point him or them out for this court? Don't point at me!
Wow, things must be really wrong if your own bloody character that you made 5 seconds ago is calling you out. In the end, Lois does come back fully healed, along with the kids. But imagine going straight out of the hospital to fight your own children's custody. I suppose this lady just can't catch a break when she's bound to life with this man. Next up, having a body part shot out by your fucking best friend after being forced to perform is not how Joe Swanson saw his life going. But here we are, mate. In Lottery Fever, the Griffins win $150 million on the lottery. And what does Peter do with his best friends Joe and Quagmire, men he's known for years? He gives them a bit of money, which is pretty nice and wholesome for about 30 seconds. Because immediately after, Peter decides the loan is essentially an ownership document.
Oh. Yeah, I understand. You got other things to do. I just wrote you guys a couple of checks. But no, you do your things.
Of course, after receiving a bunch of cash from him, they couldn't leave him just like that. So Peter starts ordering them around like trained pets, demanding that they do whatever the hell he wants them to do. He forces Joe to watch an entire season of True Blood for him, to find only the scenes that he likes. The poor man, who is an officer of the law with important duties, has to leave his job to take notes on vampire documentaries. Then he makes Quagmire take an enormous bite out of a frozen fudge pop just to watch him suffer through the cold, and makes him smear it on his face and then smacks him.
Ow! Ow! Yeah, that's right, Ow. Now you swallow that. Don't you dare spit that out.
God, I just can't imagine the brain freeze from that. One bite and I'm spitting that frozen stick of despair out, no matter what anyone says. But things get genuinely grim when Peter has both of them perform a synchronized duet with an added twist.
Okay, guys, now you're gonna do a synchronized duet of making whoopee while I shoot you with this BB gun.
That doesn't sound safe.
I'll have to agree with Quagmire on this one. It's very unsafe. So, while they're singing, Peter starts shooting at them with the bloody BB gun, and eventually busts Joe's eye with it, despite being told not to.
Peter, it was really close to my eye!
Relax, Joe. I'm nowhere near your eye. Hey, Joe, open your eye.
I mean, Joe's already in a wheelchair, dealing with everything that comes with being a paraplegic police officer. Now he has to deal with his eye too. Don't add more handicaps to his handicap. By the time the two of them finally walk out, Joe has lost an actual eye and had to get a glass replacement. As if the universe didn't give him a bad enough hand already. Or legs. He's now missing an eye because his supposed best friend felt like scoring headshots one day. However, this isn't the only time Peter has used some sort of firearm against someone. In A Shot in the Dark, Peter has a proper firearm, which means the stakes have gone up considerably. The family couch gets nicked off the front lawn, and Peter responds the way any rational man with the intellectual capacity of a dinner roll would, by forming a neighborhood watch and somehow acquiring guns for himself and his mates. I can only imagine bad things will happen from here. On the very first night duty, Peter spots someone in the dark trying to get through Cleveland's window. He gives a single verbal warning, gets no response, and immediately fires. The figure turns out to be Cleveland Jr., who'd been using the window instead of the front door to avoid letting the aircon out. He also had his headphones in, which is why he didn't hear Peter coming, sending him to the hospital. Cleveland refuses to forgive him, calls it a hate crime, and their friendship falls apart. And to make absolutely sure the episode doesn't end on that one catastrophe, Peter attempts to make a peace offering by offering some booze and cigars. But instead, he drops a lit cigar into the bowl and uses a cloth to try and put the flames out. But that turns into a Molotov cocktail situation that sets Cleveland's house on fire. And Peter's words of encouragement did not help either.
Get your family out of that house! If they don't leave, they'll die! Round up your family and get out, or you're all gonna be—
Something tells me that Peter would fit in perfectly in 19th century America. An accidental shooting that somehow evolved into arson, I'd say that this is definitely one of the most idiotic peace offering packages that this Muppet has to give. Right, now we've arrived at Meg territory. And as we all know, Meg's harassment is an art form, an ancient ritual that has continually been carried on through every season of this damned show.
Hey, Meg, you got something on your shirt.
Hi, Dad.
But this time, we'll have a look at what happens in Peter's Daughter, the episode that begins with a flash flood hitting Quahog, and the Griffin house is filling up with water on the ground floor. Obviously, this is a bad situation, and the family needs to get out immediately. But for Peter, his genuine top priority at this moment is a case of beer in the fridge. And instead of, I don't know, being a man and going and getting it himself, he sends Meg into the rising floodwater to get the beer. Her blouse catches on one of the shelf racks inside, and she begins to drown. But Peter stays right next to what's happening and just watches her.
Well, Lois, I am sorry for snapping at you earlier. You were right to criticize Meg. She could not even handle this simple task. She's in there right now, taking a nap under—
Just let me sit with that for a moment. Peter sends his daughter into a flooded kitchen to save his beer, and she nearly drowned. The beer wasn't worth it, Peter. The beer is never worth it in that situation. Anyway, they rush her to the hospital where she falls into a coma. And that's where we have another one of our rarest moments of Peter regretting his stupid decisions, which is actually pretty wholesome.
You hear me, Meg? If you come out of this, I am gonna treat you like a princess for the rest of your life.
Fortunately, Meg does survive and wakes up in the care of Michael, a medical student she starts a relationship with. Peter, in the spirit of his promise, becomes so overprotective that he drives Michael away by stalking their dates. Meg, devastated, announces that she's pregnant, and Peter forces a wedding through one of his most iconic moments.
Dad, please don't do this. You can't make him marry me.
I just want to talk to him.
Why do you have a shotgun?
I just want to talk to him.
Dad, this is ridiculous.
I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him.
It is not his fault.
I just want to shoot.
Michael actually agrees to go through with it. The man is either very much in love or absolutely scared shitless of being shot. And honestly, both are understandable. But the wedding only falls apart when Meg discovers she isn't actually pregnant. and Michael immediately leaves her at the altar. To keep the score, Peter nearly drowned Meg, retrieving his own beer, scared away the first real boyfriend she ever had, and forced a shotgun wedding based on a pregnancy that didn't even exist. If there's a lower point for a fictional teenager, I genuinely want to know what it is. However, Brian does hit a low in his life after Peter destroys his face. In Brian the Closer, the insufferable little dog is not entirely innocent in this episode. By the end of it, he does something genuinely awful to Quagmire and deserves a fair chunk of what comes his way. But the reason any of it happens in the first place is entirely Peter's doing. And it starts with something so unbelievably petty that it's almost impressive. Brian has an old rope toy that lives down the side of the couch, and he loves it like any regular dog would. Peter finds it, and since he cannot allow anyone else to have any nice things, he immediately becomes obsessed with taking it.
Oh, that's stupid. I want it.
Well, you can't have it.
Come on, Brian. I need this rope in case I open a nautical-themed restaurant.
Now, the normal thing would be to forget about it, since, it's just a rope. After all, there isn't much to do with it. But no, Peter is willing to take this to the absolute extreme. He ties the toy rope to his car and speeds off, but Brian refuses to let go, biting onto the rope for dear life as Peter drags him through the neighborhood. And of course, this leads to some pretty gruesome stuff. Again, I won't feel entirely bad for him since he does pull off a dickhead move in this episode, but getting every single one of his teeth shattered and nose fractured is still a pretty horrible thing to do to anyone. Now he's out there looking like a deflated balloon. Not only does his family refuse to pay for a vet since they're not spending human money on a mammal like him, Peter just rubs it in his face by doing this next.
I don't know. But here, you can have this back. It's boring. It doesn't do anything.
So all of that struggle for the rope was all for nothing. And Brian just lost a whole set of teeth and ends up looking clapped just from Peter trying to get that.
You're horrible. You're an irredeemable monster.
So far, we've seen Peter do a lot of terrible things to so many people. But this one should probably have ended with someone in prison. It didn't, but it obviously should have. Maybe if the judge knew what it was called.
You know, when you were poor, you were always a douche. But now, screwing over the people who helped you? I don't know how you sleep at night.
Anyway, meet Stewie, the 1-year-old who'll be in a world of hurt very shortly in Brian Griffin's House of Pain. Chris sneaks into Meg's bedroom and gets his grubby little hands on her diary. But Meg steps in and they both get into a pretty heated fight along the staircase. But it wouldn't be a real fight if there was no collateral damage. Bloody hell, getting dropped on the head is one bad thing, but I can't imagine how bad it is for this baby, by definition, to go bouncing around like a basketball down the stairs.
Oh, hell no!
He ends up unconscious with a severe head wound. No surprise there. So Chris and Meg panic and cover up the injury. Exactly what a pair of horrified sitcom teenagers would do. When Peter easily finds out, you'd expect him to be the responsible one. Take the baby to the hospital. Be a responsible adult for once. Instead, he reveals that he's knocked them out on multiple previous occasions, and hiding it from Lois is standard Griffin household procedure.
When you were babies, I used to knock you kids out every month or so. Meg, this is a list of hats. I need these by 4 o'clock.
Or maybe you could take Stewie to a hospital where they'll give him a much better hat. Starts with a T and, ends with Reitman. You might think that it would stop at neglecting his son's head injury, but in typical Peter fashion, he has his unrivaled parent always be Peter. I reckon neglecting a severe head injury and topping it off with tossing an unconscious, head-wounded baby underneath a car is a fucking jarring thing to do. But hey, even though Stewie had no idea what happened, at least the little bugger's still alive after that.
Guys.
Hey, I just found out it's November. What the happened?
Honestly, we could keep going. We didn't even touch on the chicken, or the roughly 47 times he's driven the vehicle into something that he shouldn't have, or even a full rundown of Meg getting her troubles handed out to her. But 8 is enough to make the point about Peter Griffin. If you enjoyed watching this man's victims get the attention they deserve, then it's fair to subscribe to Not Fair. Fair's fair. Anyway, Cheerio.